Okay, good morning everyone. So today we will start with the basic introduction about the forest and the role of your geospatial application in the field of forestry. Okay, let me get him inside. Okay, so in today's lecture we will be covering first the basic definition of forest, and this is a part of your second unit. And then what is forest, what are the major types of forest on which we can classify different types of forest, and the major group which we need to study, that is the classification of Champion and Sage classification of forest, and how different remote sensing and GIS tools are being used for different applications of vegetation or forestry mapping. So let's start with the forest. What is forest? So a forest is defined as a plant community predominantly of trees and woody vegetation, usually closed canopy. So any area which has a plant community predominantly of trees or woody vegetation, occupied by trees or woody vegetation, usually with a closed canopy. Okay, it has a boundary, it has a closed tops of the trees. So in that case we can area which is having predominant trees with the woody and vegetation in that area, and having a closed canopy, can be called as a forest. Legally, the forest is defined as a area proclaimed to be a forest under forest law. अगर हम लोग बात करें legally what is forest, so legally it can मतलब any forest which can be claimed as forest which falls under the laws of forest, and it can also be defined as an area of set aside for the production of timber and other forest processes for maintaining under woody vegetation or certain indirect benefits of the forest. So if you go through the basic definition, then a plant community predominant by the trees of woody vegetation and having a closed canopy can be called as forest. But if you go through the legal terminology of the forest, so any area which falls under the laws of forest can be called as a forest land. And in general definition, how we can define forest, any area which is able to produce timber and other forest produces, like it is helping in the habitat of various species and all those things, and it is also maintained under a woody vegetation for certain indirect benefit. Now what are those benefits? Like they are directly or indirectly fulfilling various needs of the people of surrounding, in terms of their fuels, in terms of the cattle food to their cattle, in terms of other furniture or those kind of activities, or to make their shelters. So those kind of benefits, indirect benefits also they are providing with the providing the woody vegetation or other kinds of forest products. So I hope I am able to make you understand that what can be called as forest. Okay, then there are many parameters on which we can classify forest. Okay, the first parameter of classifying the forest is based on their age. Maybe they are even aged or maybe they are uneven aged. Like in the definition also what we have said, it's a community which is predominant by the trees. So when we are classifying these trees or these forests, they may be having same age group, they may be having different age groups. Means some the tree may be of 10 years in age from its generation, and the other tree may be of 20 years, other tree may be of 50 years. Okay, so it's not mandatory that the trees are having even aged. if we are planting in a systematic manner, if suppose forest department they are going for a plantation in a wasteland or a fallow land, then maybe the trees they can be fall under the even age, because we have planted the trees of same age in on same time. But in a natural forest you won't be getting a forest which is having a same age group. You will find different age groups of the trees, okay? Because there the generation of trees is, it's a natural process, okay? Like nobody goes there and opt for the plantation of the trees, okay? That's a natural process, starting from the generation up to the logging of the trees. Okay, so based on that, we can classify the forest on two bases, that is even aged and uneven aged. Okay, then the second classification of forest is based on the growing stock. Okay, so we may have normal forest, we may have abnormal forest. Means some forest areas may give you a large number of production of woody, this thing, but another maybe as compared to the other one, it may produce a less amount of growing stock. So it may fall under normal forest. The other one, in terms of the growing stock, it may produce a abnormal forest or abnormal amount of the stock which they are producing. So based on the growing stock, we have normal and abnormal forests. Okay, then we can also classify the forest of on the basis of regeneration. Okay, now some trees have a very rapid process of regeneration. Means the span of their life is maybe 20 years. For example, if you take an example of eucalyptus, that is a very high regeneration capacity. Means the age of that tree is very small. Okay, so if you want a fast reputation of the trees, then many areas, especially the swampy areas, they go for the plantation of the eucalyptus, because that avoid the conditions like humid or that swampy conditions. So based on the growth of the trees, we can classify the forest in two classes, that is high forest and coppice forest. Okay, few forests like sal and teak, they take a long time to regenerate. Okay, the growth of the trees are slow, but they are having a very valued what you call biomass in terms of their economic value. Okay, so that depends on the conditions of the land, as well as the need of the person who are going for the plantation of different forests. Okay, so some forests they have a high regeneration growth, and some forests they have moderate, and some forests they have very slow regeneration capacity. So we can classify the forest on the basis of this regeneration also. We can also classify the forest on the basis of the species composition. Okay, now what is this species composition? In your topographical sheets, in the previous semesters of yours, you have seen that there is, different colors, they are denoting different land use and land covers. So while you were seeing green color on the topographical sheets, you easily you can make out that this is a forest type. Okay. Then one more thing in terms of the different notifications, they have mentioned this is a pure pine forest. This is a mixed, or this is a sal mixed forest area. So what it denotes? It denotes that somewhere it is purely sal occupied forest, somewhere it is mixed forest, but major portion of that mixed forest is of sal. Okay, so based on the composition of the species, we can classify the forest on the basis of the species distribution in a particular area on two bases. One is purely of one species composition, and one mixed, in which the mixture of every tree type in that area you will be getting. But somewhere it is mixed forest which is predominant by a particular species. Cheer pine mixed forest, sal mixed forest, mahua mixed forest. This means the maximum composition under the mixed category, they are having either pine or whatever is mentioned. Okay, so based on the composition of the species also we can classify the forest. Okay, fine, clear. So I have told you till now different four classifications on which we can go for the demarcation of the various forest types. One is on the basis of age, one is on the basis of growing stock, one is on the basis of regeneration, one is on the basis of their species composition. Okay, so but if we are going through these many combinations, so it is becoming a little cumbersome job to classify the forest in proper manner. Okay, if suppose I have to classify on the basis of species itself, then I may opt for this. But if I want a general classification, then it is maybe a difficult by using these many parameters. So we want a forest classification where these all parameters can be clubbed together and we can come out with the common classes. Okay, so for this, Champion and Sage, they came out with a classification system in different ages with some modifications. Okay, so initially they come out with the demarcation of zones. If you go through the classification of your topo sheets, okay, there also the first map, when it came into existence, they have tried to cover only the continents of the world. Okay, only continents were demarcated, but what is there inside the continents, that developed with the time. So same way, the Champion and Sage, they try to classify the forest firstly on the basis of different zones which are there on your globe. Okay, you must be knowing that we have a equatorial areas, which is also called as the tropical part of the globe. Then we have temperate just above the this tropical zone, and then we have the polar areas. So based on these zones, the Champion and Sage, they have tried to class these forests into 5 or 6 major groups. 5 major groups. Okay, that is tropical forest, temperate forest, polar forest. Then 2 more forests are there. Okay, so based on that, they have tried to categorize firstly the broad group, that is the major this zones, equatorial forest and the what do you call polar forest. So these are the 5 major groups, and then with time, with the modifications, they have further divided these 5 groups into 16 major groups. Okay, and further they have also come out with the 230 more classification subgroups, which you can call. Okay, so generally we follow the 16 groups in first level of first classification of forest, and if you want furthermore fine groups, then we can also follow this subgroups. So let's discuss ki what is these, 6 zones. They are tropical, temperate, polar, equatorial, and subalpine forests. These are the 5 major groups, followed by the 16 groups of the forest, where we have tropical evergreen forest, okay, where we have tropical semi evergreen forest, and where we have tropical moist forest. Okay, so now this tropical forest is further divided on the basis of the humidity or the moisture contents in the area, along with the dryness or the uh, you know texture of the either they are evergreen or they are deciduous, means they shed their leaves. They, for sometimes, for half of the year they are evergreen, for half of the year they are without leaves, so that's why they called as deciduous trees. But in terms of tropical zone, we are discussing it: tropical wet, semi evergreen, and moist deciduous forests. Okay, then we have littoral swampy forest. At fifth, we have tropical dry deciduous forest, then tropical thorn forest, and tropical dry evergreen forest. Okay, then we have subtropical broadleaf forest, subtropical pine forest, subtropical dry evergreen forest. Then mountain wet temperate, Himalayas moist temperate, Himalayan dry temperate, and then we have subalpine forest, moist alpine, and dry alpine. So these are the 16 major classes based on different tropical zones, different zones of your this thing, equatorial to polar areas. Okay, so these are the 16 major groups. Now, as a point of economy, these 16 forest lands can be utilized as a grazing grounds for livestock. Great demand for the timber, which resulted into the development of commercial forestry. Okay, so as a point of economy, these all forests, firstly, they can be categorized or they can be utilized for the grazing ground for their cattle or livestock. Secondly, great demands of the timber. There is a great demand of timber because everybody, for their different furnitures, for their basic requirements of the construction of house, they need a timber, solid timber. And uh, because of this great demand, it resulted into the development of the commercial forestry also. Okay, so in many areas you will be seeing that forest departments, they go for the plantation of teak in few areas, which are suitable for the plantation of teak. Then in many areas of Jharkhand and this what you call, we can take an example of Jharkhand itself. They are going for the plantation of the sal tree because they have a very good timber product, which fulfill these commercial forestry related needs. And finally it is helping in the economic growth of that area also. Okay, then many products like charcoal wood, then pulp and matchbox for different paper construction, cans, rosewood, sandalwood, then resins, honey, herbs, many herbs you can get from the forested areas, then various fruits, tans, kendu, and various other products can be obtained from the forest, which has very high commercial values. And the conservation and development of these forests becomes very important as a point of view of the economic growth of various areas. Okay, so if you go through the point of economic development of an area, In that also, these forests, they play an important role. Okay, so to know and to be familiar with the various forest activities and their uses, firstly we have to be familiar with the various forest types as well as their distribution with reference to the Indian context. So let's briefly, we will see the various forest types which we have discussed as per the classification of the Champion and State, which I will be trying to show you with the pictorial development and with where they exist and what are the major types which falls under a particular tree type, forest type. Okay, now what do you mean by forest types and how we can classify these forest types? Okay, so as you all know that there are various factors like terrain, climate, soils, water conditions, which play an important role as a factor which influence the type of vegetation. Okay, so we need to take all these parameters while we will be characterizing these forests as per the classification norms. The Himalayan region poses a variety of vegetation with distinctive characters of alpine at higher altitudes, and this region is clearly distinguished from the rest of the countries. If you see, okay, if you see in context of Indian topographical conditions, you will find that JNK, Himachal, they are having a alpine type of distribution of forest in the higher altitude areas. Okay, but in the lower altitude areas they are having a little bit different forest type, because the climate of those areas which are more than 4,000 meters, where we have very scarce vegetation, where we have ice all the times, but sometimes maybe you will have a grassy land sort of things. So we need to be very conscious when we are observing the distinctive characteristics of these higher altitude areas. And you will find that in northeast we have some different types of forests. In the areas of West Bengal, you will be finding mangroves or swampy forest type of things. And then in the central Rajasthan or this, you will be finding the dry forest areas. In the coastal areas, you will be finding the coastal type of forest. Okay, so we have distinguished climatic, terrain, soil, and water conditions, which finally influence the distribution of these plants. Okay, so the climatic factors, mainly temperature and rainfall, also determine the plant community which can flourish in a specific habitat. Okay, now because there are different climatic conditions, due to which different types of forests are regenerating in different areas of India, and different kinds of habitat also you can find in different types of forests. Then, so means the flora and fauna of the any forested area will depend on the type of the forest which they are having, in which the terrain, the soil properties, the climate, the water conditions are the major influencing factor, right? So we need to take care all these things while we will be going for any kind of mapping or management strategies. Okay, then soil and drainage considerably introduce the modification, and thus we have the adaphic type of tidal forests also. Okay, so based on different parameters which we have discussed, we have the type of forest in that particular area, and finally based on these types of forest we have different types of plant communities as well as the faunal communities in a particular forested areas. Now this is a type of evergreen forest which you can see it look like this. Every time, anytime you visit these places, the trees will be like this only. So that's why this is called as evergreen. Now in semi-evergreen, somewhere you will have greenery and somewhere you have a scrub or these kind of things. So that's why this is called as semi-evergreens. So here you will find a mixed type of forest where few trees are like Hamesha they will be evergreen and few trees they will be shedding their leaves. But it look like evergreen because it has both the properties. Then tropical moist deciduous forest. It looks something like this. Okay, why moist? You can see here the drainage system with due to which the in and around area will be moistured. Other than this, it will be controlling the various climatic factors also in the area. So the tropical moist forest will be looking like this. Then tropical dry deciduous forest, it will be looking like this. Okay, you can see it's more like it will be more like the what do you call scrubby land or bushy kind of things you will be mostly finding in such areas. Then we have a thorn forest. Okay, the stems of the trees you will be finding mostly thorns. Okay, in dry areas generally you will be finding this kind of things. Then the tidal forest, it looks like this. Okay, then we have the Himalayan temperate and alpine forest which is in the higher altitudes of the Himalayas. It looks like this. Okay, the pine forest, as its name denoting, you will be finding the needle like leaves in this type of forest, and they will be having a cone like top, a sharp top. Then tropical wet evergreen forest in Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Karnataka, Andamans, Northeast India, West Bengal, Assam, Odisha. They are the states which are having tropical wet evergreen forest. Okay, and these are some species which are found in tropical wet evergreen forest. Then tropical semi-evergreen forest, you have a distribution of these forests in Western Ghats, Karnataka, Kerala. So mainly in the coastal parts of the country, you will find this kind of trees. Then the tropical moist deciduous forest. So in Andaman, few parts of Andamans, Gujarat, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Kerala, you will be finding this kind of trees. So teak, sal, all these trees they falls under this. Then we have littoral or swampy forest. So generally along the river sides or those kind of things, you will be finding this swampy means daldali and littoral forests. Okay, so coastal regions mostly they are having this littoral and swampy forest and estuaries of the rivers. Okay, I told you estuaries means the along the rivers or the areas which are in and around the river bodies. In those areas you will be finding mostly these swampy or littoral forest. Then tropical dry forest in many states, in many parts of various states, you will be finding this tropical dye forest like Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Andhra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, UP, HP, okay, UP, Uttar Pradesh, Himachal Pradesh, Bihar, Odisha, Rajasthan. Okay, teak, terminalia, and all these kind of trees are there in case of this tropical dry forest. Then we have tropical thorn forest. So generally it is found in the dry peninsular India, Madhya Pradesh, semi and arid areas of Punjab, okay, most of the area of Punjab, and then Rajasthan also having this thorny type of forest, Gujarat, few parts of HP, UP, Uttar Pradesh, and Madhya Pradesh is also fine as this tropical thorny forest. So Ectia, Prosopis, all these kind of trees are found there in thorny forest. Then we have tropical dry forest. Okay, so in most of the coastal belts from Tirunelveli and Nellore, it is found the tropical dry forest. Okay, and these are few classes of this tropical dry evergreen forest. Then we have subtropical broadleaf hilly forests. Okay, so in most of the areas of little lower elevation in the Himalayas, okay, these kind of forest you will find. So South India hills, Eastern Himalayas, and Khasi Hills. They are having the major forest type as a subtropical broadleaf hill forest. Okay, so these are some species which are very common in this type of forest. And then we have the tropical pine forest, where we have expansion of this forest in the central Himalayas and the Manipur hills. Okay, basically the pine, cheer pine, deodar, and the blue pine is a main, or rhododendron is a main type of forest found in this forest type. Then we have subtropical dry evergreen forest. Okay, so what is this? In most of the Himalayan areas, we will be finding this type of subtropical dry evergreen forest. Exia modesta and Olicia, these are the major types of this forest. Then montane wet temperate forest. Okay, so most of the hills in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, you will find this type of forest. So largest Stomia and Syngium, Rhododendron, these are the main types of the forest under this class. Then we have Himalayan moist temperate forest. So in the Himalayas, you have a expansion of these forests, cheer pine, Curus incana, and this dilatata. These are the major types of these forests. Then we have Himalayan dry temperate forests. Okay, so in the high altitude areas where we have very less vegetation expansion, there you will find these kind of trees in Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim, and Arunachal Pradesh. Parts of these states you will find this Himalayan dry temperate uh, type of forest. So pinus, blue pine, and deodar are the major species under this forest type. Then we have moist alpine, which generally we have in above 3,400 meters altitude. Generally, in the mostly hilly areas, we will be finding this kind of forest type. It includes rhododendron and birch. Then we have dry alpine types of forest, which actually exist in xerophytic conditions, which includes junipers and polychina. Then we have importance of the natural forest and the vegetation. As we have already studied in few topics, that the forest, as they are helpful in fulfilling the basic requirements of various natural resources, as well as basic various features of the country. So they have a very important role in terms of various climatic conditions, environmental conditions, as well as in the socio-economic development of a particular country. So forests, they constitute one of the most important basic natural resource of the country, which are helpful in various activities like to control various climate related issues, to control various environmental things, and to control, yes, various socio-economic things of the country. Then we have ecological view, where we have the forest, which helps in the occurrence of various climatic activities, as well as to promote soil conservation in various catchment areas or in various hilly areas. It also regulate the runoff modeling in a particular area. They also improve the moisture holding capacity of soils and maintain an ecological balances. Then the distribution of forest land, according to the census of 2000 and 2001, the statistics show that the forest land occupied about 67,000 sorry 6,75,538 square kilometer, which constitute around 20.55% area of the total geographic area of the country. So that means around 21% of total area of the country is surrounded by, the forest land. The largest area forest land is around 77,265 square kilometer, which is in Madhya Pradesh, while the lowest is in Haryana, that is 1,745 square kilometer, which is around only 2% of the complete geographic area of that particular state. The highest concentration of the forest land is registered in Arunachal Pradesh state, with the maximum coverage of 62% of its geographical area, and lowest in Haryana, which is around 3% of total geographic area in the state. The Andamans and Nicobar are also found with very high concentration of forest cover. Other than that, in many states of northeastern area, in Himachal, in Uttarakhand, in JNK, also we have a good amount of coverage of forested areas, where people, they are dependent for their livelihood for these forest area, at least for the daily things. Then there are various problems which occur in the development of the forest, or which are hindrance in the development of various forest activities. So this we have discussed in the previous lectures also. Now again, in brief, we will be discussing and we will be moving ahead. The problems which occurs, that is related to the growth of because of the rapid growth in the population, and the what you can call, because of the greed of the present man's, or their greed of having commercially or subsistence gathering activities related to lumbering, charcoal burning, firewood collection, overgrazing, zooming cultivation, and the annual forest fire have been causing considerable damage to the wealth of the country. So what we can say ki, because of the rapid population growth and our greed to towards having a good amount of tourism into those areas, so that we can get a good amount of economic stability. But on the other hand, we are not taking care of the sustainable management. Yes, we can plan for those kind of activities where we are boosting the tourism into those states, but on the other hand, we need to take care also that how to maintain the same growth, or how not to disturb the habitat who are residing into those forest area, because ultimately these forests, they are playing an important role in the various environment related issues to maintain the environment of that area. So secondly, excessive cutting of trees, firewood collection into those forest, from those forest areas, overgrazing by different cattle's people of surrounding those forested area. They send their cattle to for grazing into those forested areas, which actually loosens the soil, and ultimately, if this is a regular process, then it may hamper the soil properties in that areas. And with the time, the soil may lose its what you can call the strength of holding the roots, the other things, so which may leads to different kinds of forest regeneration or those kind of activities. Then the zooming cultivation, especially in northeastern areas, that also leading to the forest fires in various areas, which leads to a damage into the forest wealth, as well as the environment of the same. Then forests in India have been degenerated and degraded into the barren lands and unproductive lands because of all these activities which I have explained. To alleviate this, serious concern, the development of different kinds of forest related programs, they have been started up to maintain the this forest resources by the government officials. So these tools, remote sensing, GIS, GPS technologies, which we have studied in very detail in yesterday's lecture, they are playing an important role for various kinds of mapping management due to its the various processes which we take into considerations, like it is very helpful for collecting the large amount of information, and we can have a synoptic view, or we can have different kinds of analysis by using different band resolution data sets, and then we can have a repetitive coverage, which we have studied, that temporal kind of change detection we can also go for. Then we can also go for the studies related to the change, what change has been taken place. Then we can also go for, which we have studied in the previous lectures. So I am skipping these things, that these technologies, how they have been used, this we have studied in very detail. Now the application areas of these tools, GIS, GPS, into either agriculture or in forest areas. The utilization of space on multispectral data for crop acreage and production estimate. It started in the 70s, 1970s, with launching of large area inventory experiment, jointly in collaboration with NASA, United States Development Authority, USDA, and NOAA, National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, in 1974. And then in India, the satellite remote sensing is mainly used for the crop acreage production and estimation of agriculture crops. The methodology for acreage and production estimate using Indian remote sensing satellite, that is called as IRS 1A, 1B, 1C, 2A, 2B, and now we are into the different more resolutions related sensors. Okay, so has been operational for 4 major crops, which are wheat, paddy, sorghum, soya bean, groundnut, and cotton. So these are the major crops for which the Space Application Center, they have used these remote sensing data sets. In 1970s, the ISRO also carried out very interesting and promising experiment for IARI for detecting a coconut root wilt disease in Kerala before it was visible on ground. Okay, so these kind of studies we can perform with the help of remote sensing satellite data sets. Yesterday also we had a lot of discussion about the advanced remote sensing techniques for these kind of activities. This is that analysis where we have done, the Space Application Center has done. Then identification, area estimation, and monitoring. Okay, so first application was identification of a specific species, then the area estimation, how much area is covered by that, and then we can also go for the monitoring. We can go for a different time series data set, and we can go for the monitoring key in what season we are getting the more crops, and how to distribute, or how to go for different management practices in the distribution of plants, or maybe how they are beneficial other than other crops. So these kind of analysis we can go for with the help of these satellite data sets for a larger areas. So the specific requirement of climate and soil conditions coupled with specialized management practices make the distribution of plantation crops rather more localized comparison to other agriculture crops. Okay, so we can go for a comparative study where we can study which crop is beneficial to grow in which season, and whether we can go for the plantation of rice, or whether we can plan for some other crops, so that we can earn, or we can produce a good amount of economic advancements. Then the identification, estimation of growing stock, analysis of distribution, and monitoring at regular intervals are the major aspects of plantation crops. So what we can do, we can identify the areas, these are the areas. We can also have an idea about the growing stock estimation, ki how much the stock is we are able to produce. Analysis of distribution and monitoring at regular intervals. We can have either if it is a crop which we can get in a 6 month once, then we can go for a twice yearly monitoring of these things, and then the major plantations can be done. Then the second one is the crop nutrient deficiency detection, where the nutrient deficiency in plants affect the color, moisture content, and the internal structures of the leaves. As a result, their reflectance powers may change. Okay, so crop nutrient deficiency detections can be also done. As I told you in the previous lecture, that we are using various kinds of hyperspectral data sets for these kind of analysis, where on the basis of color, on the basis of moisture content within the leaves, where we go for the leaf area indexing, LAI indexing, and then the internal structures of the leaves can be studied, and as a result we can observe the changes, and we can have an idea that these areas are facing a problem of nutrients deficiency, so we can manage as per the changes which took place in the area. Then we can also go for the soil mapping. We can have an idea about the soil classification of the area, and based on that we can plan for the crops which are suitable for different types of crops. So here, this map I'm showing you, this is an example of soil types in Odisha state, which I just used to show you differentiation, that this kind of mapping can be done, and we can plan ki this A2 is good for a particular type of crop, and this A5 is good for this type of crop. So we can accordingly manage for the different types of things. Then the green, red, and NIR reflectance could be employed as uh, mainly for the estimation of different indexes, like the biomass estimation we can go for, LAI we can go for, leaf area index. And we can use, other than this, different reflectance values and pixel values as a change in the forest biomass. If there is a change or variation in the values pixel wise we are observing, so we can see there is a continuous change in the maybe a type of forest, or maybe some other problem is existing in a particular area, because the frequency of changing the pixel values are high in a particular area. So we can go to the field, we can check what is the problem, and then we can go for the various management strategies. So such combinations of reflectance values, the vegetation indexing, also serves to correct the undesirable influences of varying soil reflectance or atmospherics. So, on the other hand, what we can do, we can plan for the various indexings, various reflectance values, on the basis of which we can have an idea that there are something different is going on. So we can go for a planning in that way also. Then the crop condition assessment, the physiological changes that occur in a plant due to the stress may change the spectral values and the emittance characteristics of a particular plant. Okay, so in the detection of stress, it is amenable to remote sensing techniques. The crop monitoring on regular interval during the crop growth cycle is essential to take appropriate measure to assess. So information on portable loss of production. So we can go for the analysis of crop conditions. Like I told you that based on the reflectance and emittance value, because every object has a different emittance or reflectance values. When we have hyperspectral data, and we have the differentiation within the band also, within the infrared band or red band, we have thousands of channels, and based on those channels we can identify that every pixel has a different value. Okay, so based on that we can see that there are changes in the same crop in an particular area. So that means there are some either stress environment in the health of that particular crop. So we can go and see in the particular point where that disturbances took place, and we can look for the management strategies for the remedial actions. Then phenological stress also we can go for. This is image where the soybean stress can be seen. Okay, then the spatial signature library, the spatial signature evaluation of the species and the reflectance properties of different species in different phenological stages and growth stages are yet to be explored. So now the studies has come where the different stages of growth can be seen. We are into a stage where we can go for the studies that like we want to see the stages, various stages of wheat crop. So by seeing, or by seeing the reflectance value of that particular field, we can analyze that maybe this is having at the young age of the wheat, or maybe sal plantation, and then the old stage, it has a separate reflectance values, and then based on those we can also go for the stage analysis and the growth stages of the different crops or different forests. The workflow in this line, the crop reflectance properties, are conducted by organizations like Space Application Center Ahmedabad and many more. Nowadays, this is a study which is very upcoming, where we are doing the analysis, where we can go for the analysis, and in a one glance we can have an information that now the all the crops, they are in at the ripen stage, and now we have to harvest, go for the harvest. So with the help of these daily assessments through these hyperspectral, or maybe after 15 days we can have an idea about bigger farms, about the stages of the different crops or different forests. Then crop yield monitoring and procedure forecasting. The information on the production of crops before harvesting is very vital to national food policy planning and economic country. Now, again, this is a very upcoming application of this remote sensing, where we can go for the production forecasting related to the production in a particular area before harvesting, because nowadays the studies has come where we are having a crop of maybe onion. If you take an example, now we are knowing ki how much may be the production this year of onion. So last year maybe this much. For example, in an area of Punjab, in 2019, the production was 200 kg ton or 200 kg. But this year they have only 100 years. So if from 5 years it was 200, and this year it is 100, so we are having an estimation that this year the crop is going to harvest as a less amount, so we can plan for the import of things. Okay, so how we can go? Because of this forecasting, because of different data sets we are able to conduct, so we can forecast that there are chances of having less amount of crop production of onion. So we have to manage things in a proper manner, so that the rates cannot exceed. Okay, so this kind of evaluations we can go. Pest management also we can go for, like I have told you, based on different things we can analyze that these are the areas who are having the pest infections, and then we can go for management strategies. Agriculture drought assessment, that also we can go for. So with this, I'm ending my lecture for today, and tomorrow again we will start with the agriculture drought and other application in the forestry areas. With this, thank you very much. Now you all can appear for your quiz through your LMS. Thank you very much.